Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third season of the Leaf Colectivo podcast. We're coming back only a few days after we finished the second season. So you can think like this, like a kind of an extension of the second, but really is the third one because we're changing subjects. But also, kind of like we're leading into Black Friday. And we thought that there's certain topics that we wanted to probably start covering ahead of Black Friday, but also as a way for us to be preparing ourselves for that period. And we're doing it with enough time, quote unquote. Although yesterday, uh, I was listening to a presentation by Stephen Hewitt from Gene Shark, and he was saying that if you're starting preparing for Black Friday now, it's a bit too late. But anyway, here we are. And with me is the amazing Harley Wesley. Welcome. Great to
Hello.
be together once again in the screen.
Hello. Yeah, as you know,
Yeah.
always thrilled to be here.
Uh, no, it is always great to be here, Wes. So topic for this season is going to be uh, everything to do with conversion tracking as we go, because that's really, not only is the basic foundation for everything that you do, but also is something that we've surprisingly found that so many people get wrong. And we really want to give everybody the knowledge that is required. So think of this as a bit of a public notice for everybody. Like we want to go into it based on the experience that we've had over the uh, past months, talking to a lot of brands, but also like what we're seeing. We've been auditing thousands of brands over the last few weeks, and yeah, we're pretty concerned about the way things are, just out of the sheer, waste that is going there. So today is going to be all about that. We're going to be talking about this performance crisis that nobody's talking about, uh, that people actually should know. And that's why we're doing this. So without further ado, we're going to start with something basic. And what's conversion tracking? Yesterday, I was at an event and I was talking with the chief commercial officer of a fairly large brand. And, he reached out to me after, my presentation, which was, about tracking and what it does, and positively and negatively if it is broken. And he was telling me, like, I just don't understand this whole thing. I don't understand the impact. And over the last couple of weeks, I've spoken to maybe 4 or 5 brands with a similar thing. It's like, I know I need it, I just don't know what it is. I really just feel like it's like a black box, something that is just there. Um, and it's especially important nowadays because Facebook and Google, I think, are coming along in realizing how bad things are, but also how needed this is, because without it, none of the AI actually works. So, as you would have seen, you will be seeing messages popping up on your channel saying, install this app, because despite the fact that they're not great, it's better than nothing. And we're going to be talking about that today, and also why, you know, better than nothing, yes, it's better than nothing, but there are better ways to do things. So, Wes, what's conversion tracking?
Yeah, it's well, just before I get into that, this is a summary and introduction to conversion tracking. And over the course of this series, we'll dive deeper into some of the points that I'm gonna kind of summarize in this episode. So, kind of what is it, why it's important, some of the things we've learned along the way, and yeah, kind of the light bulb moment for us, why we've arrived at this point. But yeah, conversion tracking is a way of monitoring, measuring interactions, customer interactions across your website, and sending that data, that event data. So typically, an event might be page view, add to cart, view content, or view item, which means viewing a product page. Um, Begin checkout and purchase, let's call them the core 5 events in e-commerce, right? There's lead and there's custom event, there's all that other stuff, but just for the sake of this, those core 5 events that are across the journey from landing on a page to your mid-funnel event, which is viewing a product page, adding to cart, begin checkout, and purchase, right? And all those are different stages of intent. You can build audiences from each of those events. A typical one that everybody will probably understand is an abandoned cart, right? And retargeting people who have left something in the cart. A lot of people think about email, but that is driven by tracking. You're tracking the event. Someone's triggered this event. The trigger might be on a button click the add to cart button, or a cart page loads, or a particular page loads, and an event is fired, and you can build audiences from that event. So there's kind of three core things that conversion tracking does. So it will fire these events, it will track these events, and on those events, it will augment those events with product information, or it should product information and customer information. And then it will send those to your ad accounts, email marketing platforms, and analytics platforms like GA4. So essentially, it's the lifeblood for any platform that uses data to drive outcomes, to drive targeting, to build audiences, to retarget people, to target people. And fundamentally, it's the first and most important part of the performance marketing chain. And without nothing else really matters if that is broken. Your ad account setups, your creatives, etc., paid media, if you are optimizing for conversions, purchases, add to carts, whatever, leads, none of that is going to work properly without having this done. So you can imagine how fundamental that foundation is to driving performance, to driving targeting, to driving profit and profitable return on ad spend. Um, yeah, that in a nutshell, that's what it is.
So how does it work? So like for people to understand, right? I mean, so conversion tracking is code, right? Code that gets executed. Uh, and if we were to look at from like, right, I click on an ad and that ad will, like will take me to a website. Like what happens there? Like, and how, that how does like compliance play into this? Like at what point does like do we communicate back to the channels? Like like explain like like almost like I'm on five, like this whole journey, like you're looking at
Yeah,
an
so
ad, you click on it, and then you land on a website.
yeah, so not to get too technical at this point in this, but when you click on an ad and you then go to somebody's website, there is some referrer, there's some information passed from you clicking on that ad to landing on that website. There should be anyway. There's some what's called some kind of referrer information, so that so that you can track, say, where you've come from, what platform you've come from. This is a big issue for Google Analytics. This is why Google Analytics should not be used as a channel attribution tool. It is not a channel attribution tool. It gives you some channel attribution metrics, but they are not accurate. And when I say not accurate, I mean less than 50% accurate. That it's not accurate in any way. So everybody will notice, and I'm sure people will be nodding their heads when they're watching this. They'll go, "Oh, it feels like Meta is over attributing, or GA4 is massively under attributing Meta, and then I've got all this traffic from direct and organic and stuff." And people think direct is where people have typed a URL directly into the browser, and it's not. It's the vast majority. It's just unknown traffic. That referrer information cannot be passed. And the only way that the ad platforms can get attribution passed back to a particular ad. So if I click on an ad, something called FBC, right? It's a parameter, right? A click parameter. I have clicked on this ad and I have gone to this website, and that information is attached on the cookie, right? It's like a cookie-based thing, and it will track me, and it will pass that information back to the ad platform to say, and if you've got tracking set up, it will attach that FBC, that click ID thing, and it will attach it. It will create a session. It will try and attach it to me if it can find me, right? And it recognizes me as a person that exists on Meta, for example. Remember, Meta's got lots of information about you. It's got your relationship status, your email, your phone number, where you live, your address, your date of birth. It's got all this stuff that identifies you as a unique individual. And if that information can be collected right from IP address or from the website, if you input your data onto a website into a form, it can match that information back to the information that it has. Meta can do it, Google, TikTok, Klaviyo, it's all the same. It's part of matching an individual to an event they've done, and then they can add you to an audience and etc. etc. So if it passes this click ID information and to the website, and then you go and do a bunch of stuff and you're tracking a page view and you go to a product page and you add something to cart, it can fire these events and attach it to this click on this ad and say, yeah, this ad resulted in these interactions on this website. If that information is not passed properly, and that information can get stripped out for all sorts of different reasons, ad blockers, just a poor internet connection, poorly implemented conversion tracking. That information, it then can't attach those interactions and those conversions, and the big one is obviously a purchase. It just can't attach it back to the ad, so that attribution is lost somewhere. Um, and it can't attribute that back. That's a really basic way of describing how it tracks interactions from ads on the website and then attributes them back to the campaign. So obviously I'm just talking about the event there. It can also pass back, oh, this person has added this very specific thing to cart. Wesley's gone on and he's got this t-shirt and it's a particular size in a particular color, a particular brand, whatever it is, and he's added that to cart. Oh, and then he's added some like a jacket of this size and this color and this brand and some trousers and some shoes and etc. And it can record all the different product variations and it can store them, pass them back, attach to it, and it can add you into a retargeting pool. And then you can then do dynamic personalized retargeting, retarget people with exactly the thing that they've added to basket, but it's got to be able to attach all that information to a particular person that Meta can recognize on its platform. So if you're not sending that information back, right, it can't match that event, something that's happened in that session, that click at it to a particular person, it can't match the product to a particular person, and all that stuff is kind of can get lost, and there's a lot of information that needs to be passed, and also that's done in on top of all that, then you've got the compliance and the privacy and the consent regulation stuff that can also affect that. So it's a very intricate web of event data, product data, customer data wrapped in the compliance and the consent the consent parameters. If I've gone in and said, right, I don't want anything, I want to reject the cookies on a cookie banner, straight away, loads of that information just cannot be passed. There's some stuff that GA4 can do, and some other it can model some of that data, so it won't pass the personally identifiable information, or it'll pass it in a hashed and an anonymized way, and you won't be able to add that person then into an audience and match that person, but it will know that, right, 70% of the people that come to this website are males between these whatever, 25 and 34, I wish, and then they live in this location. Can just say, all right, 70% of the people that look like that, the 30% that we can't see, we'll assume 70% of them look like that. So it's a very intricate web, and this stuff can get stripped out or degraded or missed, or it doesn't fire, or it's inaccurate. And if you imagine that all that information is what the ad platforms are using to inform targeting, and I mean targeting right at the top of funnel, bidding. So everyone should have heard of smart bidding now with things like PMax and Advantage Plus. It's where the vast majority of spend going. They use these intent-based signals, this event data, this product data, and this customer information to feed all their targeting, their algorithmic, their targeting. So it might go, oh, right, we're getting this person between this age, male, between this age, living in this location, and obviously they've got lots of information about all the interests that you've got on Meta and loads of stuff you've done on Google. They've got a very, very extremely rich profile. If you're my age, been on the internet for 20 years or something, it's going to have an extremely rich profile of the stuff that I like and search for and interested in, etc. And then they're going to target people that look like that, and it's going to increase the bids on particular interests and behaviors of people who look like me, as well as then all the retargeting stuff, actually retargeting me personally with the stuff that I've interacted with and viewed on a website. So you can imagine how important that is for driving performance from paid media and fundamentally the profitability and the efficiency of that paid media spend is in the main governed by conversion tracking. Without it, you can't do anything in terms of performance. You could just optimize for an event that happens on Meta, like a click on an ad, or an impression, or some kind of engagement. But obviously, that's you're optimizing for that stuff. That's very, very poor quality traffic. You're just optimizing for the cheapest click or the cheapest engagement. Whereas what you can do with conversion tracking is optimize, which most people do. Optimize for a purchase, so the highest intent event, and you say to the algorithm, "This is the event I care about. So go and find me more people that are going to and bid on the people that look like the people that are doing this event." And that's not you having to use lookalike audiences. Lookalike audiences are kind of a bit of a thing of the past now. They're just used naturally by the Facebook algorithms and Google and ad platform algorithms. You'll see when you create an interest-based audience or a lookalike or whatever, it just says targeting will be automatically expanded if it's likely to result in a better CPA, better cost per action. And what that means is generally it'll just, it'll test other people that look like the interests. If you go into Meta, for example, and you type in some interests, it will suggest a whole bunch of other interests that just look like the interests that you've typed in. And so it will just do that naturally. It'll just naturally target all those relevant kind of interest groups and lookalikes. So that's how fundamental, that's kind of how it works and how fundamental it is to drive in attribution, targeting, retargeting, performance, and kind of profitability of paid media spend. And you can imagine then how delicate that is and how easily all that stuff can just get mashed by all the apps you're putting on a site. How many apps do you have on a site? Typically, what, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70? We've seen apps, people with like 70 apps on there. Imagine how much code that could inject into a website, and how that could affect this intricate web of targeting events on a website. And I'm not even talking about all the HTML and the CSS, all the stuff that builds the front end of the website. This is just apps that you stick on that ecosystem that inject code in. So it's a huge mess that's massively undervalued by the entire e-commerce industry. It's massively underserved by the very, very shit standard performance marketing industry out there. Most agencies have no clue how to do this. They leave it to the brands who have even less of a clue, or they leave it to web dev agencies that might have a bit more of a clue, but actually they have no clue. Our web developers in our company would not touch the tracking. They leave it. They're like, no, no, we're web developers and we're not tagging specialists. We're not full stack software engineers that understand this back end infrastructure stuff. We're going to leave that to the specialists. But the industry doesn't do that. And we always say,
Yeah, I think as
go
you
on.
can see, we're quite passionate about it, right? There's a massive stream of conscience right there from the mouth of or the brain of Harley. But and it is, like it is a taboo subject in many ways, to an extent. And wish people didn't have to, but like something that we've found is like people, it's not like they shy away from it because they want to shy away from it. They shy away from it just because of how complex it is. And also, like how much of a black box of sorts it kind of is. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and especially these days when you're having targeting going so broad because of the AI stuff and, this kind of like panacea type of promised land sort of thing of like you're not gonna have to do anything, leave it to the machines type of thing. Just give it the products and they will find out. I mean, it kind of comes back to why this is so important. And the thing with this is like being something so core to performance marketing, especially in this day of privacy, right? I mean, we're recording this in the same week that Apple just announced the new phones, and with the new phones come the new OS, and iOS 26 comes with like probably the most restrictions it has ever had. Now they kind of dress it as as being the champions of privacy. I mean, really, it's more of a market mode that they're pushing around so that people have to go through their own channels rather than any other way around. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, compliance and all this puts back the control back into the customers, but also equally, like, I don't want to be bombarded with stuff that I am not interested on or that I don't care about. Ultimately, at the end of the day, like, and I was talking, about this yesterday on the train with, a person that was sitting just across from me, and he worked in the fashion industry as a supplier, and he was talking about the state of the industry, of the fashion industry at the time when there, like it's probably the most difficult it's ever been, um, because of the sheer amount of offer that there is in the market. But that is also good and bad for the customer because ultimately, at the end of the day, there is so much offer out there that I kind of want to lean on, on the platforms of my interest and all that to be presented with stuff that I actually like. But it doesn't happen automatically, and I think this is probably one of the most critical things that we've been talking to people, like conversion tracking being so core and important to performance is something that doesn't happen automatically. It's something actually that you need to control, and it's something that you need to have
Invest in.
experience of
In it,
and
it,
invest.
I suppose, whenever I do these podcasts and most webinars, people just see a trend where I just get into like wind myself up and just all my frustrations come out with this stuff because for us, it's the most important thing to do with performance marketing. There's only so many ways to skin a cat, and there's only so many ways you can structure an ad account right. And there is a right and a kind of a right and a wrong way to do that. And then within that, there's some kind of flexibility depending on your product mix and what you're optimizing for and the stage of the funnel you want to target with paid media, etc. But by and large, attribution visibility is dying. There's loads of people, brands trying to solve channel attribution. I don't know, you're selling clothes, you sell t-shirts, and you're trying to solve attribution. Meta and Google can't solve it. Just forget about it. Um, and people don't trust the ad platforms. And a lot of this is just a belief game. It's like, oh, I don't trust the data. I don't trust the data. Um, and I don't think people quite understand a lot of the reason they don't trust the data is they don't understand the underlying form, the infrastructure, the data engineering part of it. Like, how is this data getting from the ad platform to my website and then back from my website into the ad platform and analytics platform? The more you can understand that, the more you'll value it and the more you will want to invest in it. Because if you're spending 50 grand a month on paid media, right, and you aren't spending anything on conversion tracking, you are mental because that conversion tracking is essentially the first step and the most important part of the chain. I keep mentioning it in driving all the performance of paid media, all that revenue you get from paid media. If you're spending 50 grand and you're getting a 2.5 or let's say a 2x ROAS, that's 100 grand a month that paid media is driving, right? And you are not spending any money on protecting the very thing that drives all of the attribution and all of the performance and all of the targeting. And the thing that really frustrates me in the market is people talk about creative, creative, creative. All good, all good. If the creative can exist in an environment where it can work properly. But if you're not tracking the data from the ad, going to the website and then back to the website and back to the ad, then your creative doesn't mean shit because it can't perform because it's not getting the product information, the event and the customer information sent back into the ad platform that delivers that ad to a person. right? So and when it does, that person sees that ad for like seconds, and they click through onto the website. And then on the website, that's where they spend much more time on your website than they do just glancing and clicking on an ad. And when they're on the website, that's when you need to do the hard work, the tracking, what events are they doing, what products are they viewing, feed that back to the ad platforms, spend more money on these products and these customers because these are the products we're selling and these are the customers who are buying them. Um, and there's just a lack of belief that tracking is something that you really need to spend money on. If you're spending 50 grand a month on it, you should spend 1% of that 50 grand. Just spend 1% of it on protecting that tracking, on enhancing the data, fixing it, enhancing the data, and then protecting it. Have someone monitor it, which a person cannot do. You need technology to do that, given how complex, how many events and parameters and customer, how much data points are being passed. There's no human that could do that, even for one brand a day. Protect it, invest in it, and protect that, and you will get better paid media spend efficiency and profitability over time. 100% guarantee. I guarantee you that. How much you can exactly attribute to investing in conversion tracking, that's very difficult to isolate that because it's an ecosystem. You've got tracking, you've got your website, you've got the buttons being pushed daily or whatever in an ad account. Like, how do you untangle all that and go, yeah, the buttons I pushed here exactly resulted in this performance? Or investing in tracking in the data set, it's really hard to untangle it. But if you believe, right, that data drives performance, which it does, that is a fact, regardless of whether you believe in it or not. If you believe that data drives performance, especially in an era where targeting control is dying, look at PMax and Advantage Plus. There's not that much you can do with the targeting there, really. Like basic demographic and a few search themes and keyword stuff in PMax, but generally speaking, what do you think is driving the targeting and the performance? What do you think? It's data, isn't it? If you look at the DDA in Google, data-driven attribution, what do you think that is? Where's all that data coming from? It's coming from the platforms themselves, the data they can collect on Google, the data, the click and engagement and video views data. Um, and then on Meta, the same thing. And then it's being fed by the actual events and the interactions that people are doing on websites and fed back in that. That is the thing that is feeding this whole algorithmic machine. So if you believe that, um, invest in it. Invest in it.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. I mean, recently I was on a call with a brand, and he was asking me, where would you allocate, conversion tracking, like like the investment, right? I mean, obviously, this is why we do what we do, right? I mean, and why we choose to put, so much effort and resources into building, signal, both the tracking, but most importantly, the watching part, right? The watcher, the monitoring part. And it's because it's an insurance, right? And he was asking me, like, where should I allocate it? Should I allocate it to infrastructure costs, or should I allocate it alongside the pay media? So, like, well, what is it going to do? Is it going to protect your pay media? It's going to make your pay media to, like to behave more effective, right? It's like putting oil on your engine, right? I mean, it's something that is required to make the most out of your petrol, right? I mean, it's
Well, a
like
car
you
can't
want to
run.
have those
A car,
efficiencies,
a car
like, and it
cannot
cannot
run
run,
without the petrol. And that's a good analogy. That is, it's
like.
it's the oil, it's the
Yeah, the
petrol, it's
petrol,
the energy, it's the
the oil is what, like really, like lubricates the engine, but also allows the petrol to have efficiency, right? I mean, and I think this is one of those things where you don't, like you can choose to put it anywhere, but if I were to choose where to allocate it, I'll allocate it to the pay media part, to the marketing part. It's not, like you have your Shopify platforms and the apps, but it's something that you need there, right? It's like the AdBlue to your diesel, right? I mean, in many ways, it's like the thing that actually gives you that efficiency that is going to make sure that it doesn't break, your
well,
engine,
I
but
would
also it
argue,
means that.
I would argue that the tracking is the petrol itself, to be honest, because without it, a car can't run, and without tracking, you can't optimize for conversion. You can't run conversions campaigns. Sure, you can spend money, right? Fair enough. You can. You could turn the engine on and run it downhill, but you're not going to be able to go through any gears, are you? You're not going to be able to change
The
gear.
channels will accept the money, the channels will accept the money, and then, and they will try to figure ways to, to fit in the data. But also, like, it's why it's becoming this important. And again, right, I mean, there are a lot of tools out there that will help you do this. And somebody was asking me yesterday, where do you play in the industry? I said, like, look, there are a lot of tools out there. Choose one if you know what you're doing, or else, like, the way we do, we do things slightly different in our end, is that we, like, rather than passing the burden back to the brand, we'll make sure that it's set up correctly, right? We'll make sure that it runs correctly and that it remains running correctly. But you want to make sure that this is something super core and important to your infrastructure, right? To your setup, like, just as much energy you're putting into, selecting your brand and your apps and who takes care of this, like, put as much effort as well into the tracking and into the conversion and into making sure that that's how you start trusting the data,
There's
even that you're
something
getting on the other end.
there's
That's
something
how.
you mentioned before as well that I suppose is like a really key component as well. So yeah, get your tracking sorted and keep it, maintain it. Get some specialists to look after it. You do need specialists. Don't half-arse it. Like you wouldn't have somebody looking after your website who's not a developer. Or in the case of most brands with tracking, they don't have anybody looking after it. It would be the equivalent of getting someone to build a website and going, yeah, thanks. And then just you don't monitor it, you're not looking after it. It could just go down at any point. It could be broken and you don't even know. You wouldn't do that with a website, would you? You'd be like, what? There's no way. I've just spent like 20 grand on, or 50 grand or 100 grand on building this website, and I'm sending like 50 or 100 grand worth of media spend through it. That's where all of my sales are coming from. You should treat your conversion tracking as sweetly as you treat your website. But just to wrap this up, the final piece of the puzzle, um, and this can just, you can have the best tracking setup in the world if you don't have your cookie compliance set up properly, that can just hammer everything. So and people just go, oh, it's just sticking a banner on a website. No, it's not. It's compliance, right? You've got to respect people's privacy choices and the consent choices if they're rejecting cookies or accepting them, or I don't know, in the unlikely event that they go through and choose some cookies and not others, which most people don't. They just like accept or reject, really. Um, but on the back of that, that governs the data that can be sent to your ads and analytics and email platforms. So if you just if that's not done properly, you're either not compliant or you're compliant and actually limiting some of the data that you can actually send to, say, GA4. Loads of people's GA4s are just, they're out by like 20, 30, sometimes 40% inaccurate in terms of revenue and transactions and against product level data. And it's just a lot of that is because of this compliance, this really lazy half-arsed compliance setup that they've got. And you can be passing all this data into GA4 legitimately, that respects people's privacy choices, and you can make GA4 a usable kind of web measurement and optimization tool, but you've not done the compliance properly, or they haven't got a cookie banner, and now they're like, oh my God, yeah, I need a cookie banner, and they just stick it on the site, and all of a sudden 20%, 30% of all the data just disappears from Google and Meta, and it hammers your performance, and the agency gets the blame. And it's not your fault. It's the brand's fault. Whoever's implemented that cookie banner and not done it properly, or had not done it a while ago, this should have all been set up a few years ago when all this came out. Any brand now that's not got a cookie banner, or, a consent management platform, and it's not set up properly, I mean, there's no excuse really. That again, that fundamentally affects the type of data, the amount of data, the richness of data that can be sent into your ads and analytics platforms. And there's the added complexity with Google, is Google consent mode. That's something additional, that affects the data that's being sent to GA4 and Google Ads, and that's another layer of complexity within this whole kind of conversion tracking and compliance setup. So I would treat your cookie compliance stuff and your conversion tracking, it's all part of one ecosystem, which is, data flow from your website to the ads, analytics, and email platforms, or whatever else you're using, Clarity, Hotjar, affiliates, whatever. It all comes under the same thing. So if you want to eke out more performance and more ROAS and a better CPA and more profitability from paid media, if you want to improve the performance of email or affiliate, you want to improve the accuracy of analytics reporting in any of your ad accounts or email or GA4, then start with your cookie compliance and the conversion tracking. That's where all that game is won and lost.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Like today, we wanted to give a bit of a foundation, a bit of a, but also, a bit of a wake up call, I would say, to a lot of people. I mean, if you don't have anybody looking after your conversion tracking and
It's
monitoring
broken.
it
Guaranteed it's
actively,
broken.
it
Yeah.
is probably broken. Yeah. And it's costing you money. Like yesterday I was talking to another brand and he was asking me, it's like, how are you gonna make me money? Like if I fix this. It was like, it's not I'm not about making you money, it's about stopping you wasting money. Like at the moment you're wasting a lot of money. And I show him really quick, not knowing, right? I mean, I've not seen this brand before, right? I was just talking to him and I said, like, look, I guarantee you that if I open my computer and do an audit right here, right now with you, there is about 80% chances that it's broken. He's like, right, go on, right? It's almost like a code challenge, right? I opened the laptop, did a quick, just by non-compliant. And he's paying for a very, very expensive cookie consent provider. I was like, you're just right there, right? Like, what's the point of you're spending all this money in a compliance management platform that you're spending lots of money for, yet everything is firing. If tomorrow, like you will be audited for it, you'll be out of luck because I mean you're pretty much almost deceiving the person, telling them that you're giving them choice,
Yeah,
but you're
choice
not
when you're
really
not.
because.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
And now
and
they've
then I
got now
showed
now
him,
they've got
how.
pain to come because they're going to have to fix it. And now they thought they'd fixed it and had this new normal, but they didn't. Now they've got the pain to come, where they're going to have less
Yeah,
data into their ads and
and
analytics platforms.
and things happened, like it, even with all the will in the world, like you need to be in control of this stuff. uh 2 days ago Shopify did a release, right? Like, and with Shopify, because it's a managed platform, it's the good and the bad of it, right? You're not in control of the what happens whenever they release stuff. So they released stuff, something that broke compliance, pretty much across the board. All the compliance was broke, right? And it was broke for a few hours on a Tuesday. And so, like when we, Watcher found it, and alerted us that, all of our brands suddenly became, in compliant, and it was weird because it was across the board, regardless of the compliance provider. And so, we went and we started talking with the compliance provider, like, oh yeah, this is Shopify. Like this happened, before, and it has happened again. It's probably gonna get fixed within the next few hours. We're already in contact with them. We found out this, within a couple of hours of it happening. Now, imagine what would happen if this were to happen for you like weeks ago, right? I mean, I was auditing another brand, last week for a company that, like actually like their service is to be fixing this stuff for other brands. And I was on a call because they were interested in Watcher, and I was on a call with them, and I was like, right, give me one of your brands. I was like, right, audit this one. He's like, I fixed this one like 6 weeks ago, and I went and checked it. It was all broken again. And and he was pulling his hair in the call. It was like, oh my God, like, and I was like, exactly, right? I mean, and these are the sort of things that, and I don't want this to be a doom and gloom type of a scenario. This is more about, look, it happens, like with all the will in the world, it happens, right? Because it's a constantly changing thing. But it's about like, but you have solutions at hand, like that you should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I honestly think this tracking and compliance thing, it's a massive opportunity for 90 odd percent of all the brands out there in the market to eke out some more performance and ROI from paid media. I do believe it is a way of making money. It's not just yeah, you can be you're wasting, it can stop you wasting media spend because that media spend is maybe because you're not sending the right event product and customer data, maybe it affects the efficiency and the accuracy of targeting and retargeting, right? So you could say you're wasting spend on serving ads that aren't quite hitting the mark, yeah? But the opportunity cost is, yeah, you could have been serving those to people who would have spent money. So actually, it is a money maker. Investing in conversion tracking and proper compliance is a way to make more money from paid media and stop wasting as much paid media spend. So it works on the wastage and it works on the ROI, the overall ROI, the actual revenue opportunities. So it's hitting your CPAs and your ROAS. So yeah, I think people need to see it as an investment in a way to drive more profitability of paid media spend. This tracking, I say tracking is targeting, tracking is performance, and tracking is profit when we're talking about paid media. So that would be my big message: invest in tracking, and yeah, you'll reap the rewards.
Yeah. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you see this as a big opportunity. Hopefully, you've learned a thing or two from today. Hopefully, you've also been, you want to go and research more. With this episode, we're going to be also releasing a few blog posts. We're going to link to them in the description, so that it allows you to kind of like read more. It's going to have resources that you can go and research a little bit more. I mean, this is something that, whilst you shouldn't become an expert on, although everybody will benefit from it, you should uh, get acquainted with, and you should get proficient with. If your business depends, however much, from paid media, if you're making decisions based on data that you're recovering from all of this, then you need to make sure that that data that you're either sending to the channels or that you're basing your decisions on is as accurate, as consistent as possible. That's the message that I want to leave you with. It is a crisis that a lot of people are living, and they don't even know they're living. Luckily, there are solutions out there, and I think, and this is why we wanted to start this third season early on, because if there is one thing that we want to make sure of, is invest on it. You're on time. Like, it doesn't take a lot to do, but it's a process that you know requires, especially regard depending on how bad it is, it's going to require some time to for the channels to adapt to. So you wanted to do it as early in the process as possible, because you're going to benefit from it. Now, with that, we'll leave you all. Thanks for tuning in, and really looking forward to this new season. There's going to be a lot of goodies coming into this as we head into the Q4 2025. Feels like yesterday when we were recording the second season last year. But we're really looking forward. There is a lot of opportunity, challenging times, but in challenging times, there are opportunities to make the most out of these sort of opportunities that come along. And I think fixing your conversion tracking is one major lever that you're going to have on your under your armor. So yeah, thank you, Wes, for being here with me, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode. Cheers, everybody. Bye.